Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. In this session, we want to talk about the commentary system among the ulama. There's some observations that are beneficial, so let's share them. And it begins with the concept that the commentary system is an effort at clarification. That's the first principle. Second principle is that the ulama, they understood the delicacy and the deficiencies of language and communication. So what we find is that within the abridgment system, the mukhtasar system, there's always a need to clarify and to expand and so on and so forth. And this in itself is a form of technology that the ulama utilize in order to express their ideas. But key to the commentary system overall, the commentary system is the shuruhat and the hawashi and so on and so forth. So you have the commentary system, which also includes glossaries and so on and so forth. Well, the ulama, they understood the limitations of language. The effort then of the commentators who are commenting on that which was said by the scholars of the generation that came before him, or even another scholar that may be in the same time period, is an effort to clarify what was being said, to perfect the language that was being used to communicate an idea. Now, this in itself is very interesting because firstly, there's an acknowledgement of the limitations of language or the limitations of certain forms of expression. And then there is this tacit understanding among scholars based on the principle كم ترك الأولين للآخرين. How much is it that the scholars that came before us have left for us, and then we can build on the meaning so it's complete, have left for us to work on. So they made effort, and then they left the affair to us to make effort to complement what they have done. So then the commentary system essentially is a symphony of efforts, right? It's a symphony of efforts. And it gathers momentum in this guild type system in which the ulama are exchanging with one another, even when there's opposition. Still, they're dialoguing within this form or this network of ideas. The acknowledgement that language necessitates clarification upon usage, in other words, that communication at times needs to be explained. You need to clarify yourself. This is also contemporary insight. Western philosophers, in particular those who have taken the linguistic turn, focusing on the role of language, have acknowledged the deficiency of language to communicate, and also the role of language to clarify and elucidate. But what we find within Western philosophy is a tension. Beginning with modern philosophy, Descartes himself is of the mind that he needs to break with the past almost violently. So intellectually, he wants to engage in a revolution that will take him in a different direction than the direction that the ulama of the past were trotting in. This is within the context of Western philosophy. So I'm using the term ulama here quite loose. So then Descartes is looking for a new venue. The difference that we find in Islamic thought versus what we find in Western philosophical thought is the idea of the mujtahid. The mujtahid is not violently breaking from the tradition, but what the mujtahid is doing is looking for an insight into understanding. Another main difference is that the mujtahid is doing this, engaging this effort of ijtihad in pursuit of understanding divine intents or the contents of the book and the Sunnah revelation. And it may be the case that a mujtahid is engaging in a rational pursuit. And reason here, it varies. It can be applied reason or theoretical reason. It can be pure philosophy or it can be science in the term, in the sense that the term is used today. But there's much more of a dance that's taking place that keeps a rhythm to it within Islamic thought. Right? There's a rhythm in Muslim scholarship. So that what's produced in the end is a symphony that's almost unending. The problem that we find in Western thought is a series of ruptures. Right? So there's a constant revolution that's taking place, and that revolution surrounds an individual rather than a community of scholarship. Whereas in the Muslim context, there's a community of scholarship or communities of scholarship working under certain principles. And so they advance their efforts, right, as a collective and in cooperation with one another. And this theme of cooperation is brought to light in Sayyid Nursi. Imam Sayyid Nursi in his tafsir Risale-i Nur, he says that one of the differences between the Quranic methodology and that which we find in contemporary Western thought is this idea of cooperation. The creation itself is in cooperation versus being what? In opposition. Two different worldviews, two different structural realities that gather human behavior and that shape human thought. So we look then at the commentary system as an acknowledgement of the deficiencies of language, but also at the potential of human language to constantly reform and correct itself. So the only speech that's considered complete is that of the divine or that of the Quran, revelation itself. Human speech is given a sense of limitation. It's built in actually, but there's an acknowledgement there that human speech is limited. So there's this constant necessity to go back, say, this could have been said better. This word could have replaced that word. We could have clarified this here. We could have shortened this here. We could have said it in a way which was more to the point. We could have elaborated more. There's a series of concepts that come into the issue of clarification. And this is one of the functions of usul al-fiqh, to talk about how it is that the Sunnah clarifies the Quran and what is the role of language as far as interpretation of the text are concerned. So then, far from just being a process of stagnation, the commentary system gives us a philosophy of language that's implicit in the works of the ulama. But that's something that needs to be extracted. But in practice, we see that the ulama engage in a movement of clarification, understanding the limitations of language and the need to work together in cooperation in order to complete the effort of seeking understanding. Allahu a'lam. aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullahi wa lakum.